everybody. My name is Nasser Abdel Fattah, and I am with the admissions office. I work specifically here with Masters in LLM interest here on campus. And today we're going to be talking to you about our master's programs and the application process. And before we get started, I'd like to go around and let all of our panelists introduce themselves and their titles. So yeah, I'll pass it off to Genevieve. Thank you.
Hello all, thank you for joining us. My name is Genevieve and I work with our admissions office as an admissions counselor and with our online students. Veronica, thanks for joining us.
Okay, I'm Veronica Schlurf. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Programs. So any of our students that are interested in whether it's a master's degree, we do a professional certificate, restorative justice, as well as LLM programs. I kind of oversee that and work with prospective students. So welcome all. And Melissa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Erickson, and I am the Director of Financial Aid. So any questions about loans, stuff like that, I'm your person.
Thank you so much, everyone. So just to get started, we have a Q&A available. So if any time during this presentation you guys have any questions, please feel free to submit anything that you have. Veronica and Genevieve will be working on fielding them, and we will be answering what we can throughout the presentation. So yeah, to get started, I'd like to show you guys just an overview of what we're going to be doing. So to get started, we're going to go over the how to apply, when to apply. You will hear from Melissa about the financial aid. We'll then go into resources that we have on campus, and we will field questions at the end. Please note, though, we will stop throughout the presentation, though, to ask if anyone has any questions. So yeah, to get started, we're going to talk about how and when to apply. When applying, you're going to apply online at vermontlaw.edu. There's a form that you're going to complete. Any sections that you have any questions about, please contact us at the admissions office. At the end, we will provide our contact information. But if you have any questions that you need addressed, please get a hold of us and we will work with you to get those answered. We also require there's one required essay, but there's also, we will go into more detail about this, but there are 2 optional essays as well. You will attach 2 letters of recommendation. That's what's required with a maximum of 4. A resume, transcript from an official degree granting undergraduate and your graduate coursework. And then there are further requirements for international applications. So to get started, we're going to talk about the essay. So the first part is the required essay. That's a personal statement. You're going to use this essay to think about this. What you want to do is to provide a 1 to 2 page essay that explains why Vermont Law School is going to help you and is the best step for you to pursue your career and professional goals. What is motivating you to do this is really what we want to see. And this is the best chance for you to show the reviewers your best writing, clear, concise, 1 to 2 pages, I said earlier. So really can think about that. If you can get your writing to 1 page, that's great, submit it. If you feel that you need another page to do that, please take the time to do that as well. There are optional essays. And when talking about these, one of them is about effect change. This is something that some people might note you might talk about in your first essay. And if that's what's happening, that's absolutely fine. Sometimes these overlap, but what you're going to try to do is talk about something that you're working in relation to an issue of personal, local, or national significance. The second essay that I want to talk about and go a little bit more in detail with is the academic one. What this is, and the statement that I like to share when I'm talking with prospective students is, if you feel that your transcript does not accurately reflect yourself. One example of this can be, maybe you took a class that you wanted to try, a hydrogeology class, and you didn't have the prerequisites. Because of this that semester didn't go as well as you wanted. Maybe that class was a lower grade. It brought down your GPA. This is a chance for you to talk about that. You can defend what happened in that semester and then also highlight, how you did well in your other areas of coursework. This isn't a chance. This one thing that I want to provide, though, in terms of tips and tricks with this is that this isn't a statement looking at your entire academic record or history. This is really looking at you explaining moments in your transcript that you feel need to be explained or relate or to help make the reviewers understand what was happening in that time. I know I just said a lot right now, but I just wanted to see if there's any questions related to essays.
So now, sir, so far we don't have any submitted essays, but I have a couple of questions that I've had in the past. Do I have to submit both optional essays if I submit one of them? Do I have to do both the effect change essay and the academic essay?
That's a great question. So no, you do not. Earlier, one thing that I touched upon is that sometimes you might find that the first optional essay effect change might overlap with your first one. So let's say you're already talking about your effect change in your personal statement essay. You do not need to write that again for the optional essay. That'll already be included and there's no need to have that repetition. And likewise, though, if you are going to write about the academic optional essay, that doesn't mean you have to write the effect change essay as well. Yeah, that's a great question, Genevieve. Is there anything else before we move on to resumes and CVs? All right. Resumes, and I'll hand it off to Genevieve.
Thanks, Master. So I will talk a little bit about resumes or curriculum vitae. So the idea that I always approach a resume submission, I approached the resume submission from this place of partnering my professional experience with my academic record. So what is very interesting about about our student population here is that they're hugely diverse. Quite a few students join us directly after their undergraduate experience, and we have a lot of students who come back to us after having a number of years in the professional fields. And so what that really means is that a number of students will have quite a lot of professional experience to put onto their resume. And so when you're kind of examining your academic history and noting that maybe it's been 3 or 4 or more years since your last academic pursuit, you really want to make sure that your resume indicates the work that you've been doing between then and now. That is a really great first step to make a person a strong candidate. When putting together the resume or the CV, person should really be looking for relevant experiences to include, potentially finding manners, drawing relevancy between, say, a college, work done during breaks in college and drawing that to your interest in your master's. So the resume itself does not have to have 35 years of professional experience, especially for those who are coming right out of our undergraduate programming. But it should have those kind of comprehensive related experiences and connecting the professional work that you have done with the even those prior essays and the degree that you're looking to seek. There are a couple of tips, submissions that we've had in the past to be, fully aware of. The submitted resume does have to be submitted in like a Word document or a PDF. We will not accept, say, links or like a JPEG or like a business card. Those won't be considered as resumes themselves. So there's a huge movement towards kind of digital resumes, which are fantastic. If that's something that is being used professionally or in the academic sphere, there should be a PDF created of that so that the PDF is submitted as part of the application materials. That helps our reviewing committee really be able to take a very quick, comprehensive look at the applicant, at the candidate, and then say their digital profile, their digital resume has quite a few other experiences. At that point, then the reviewing committee can go and review those materials separately. So those are just a few things to consider as you're putting together your resume, making sure that it really makes you a really strong candidate. Something else that you will need to work through to submit in your application is this character and fitness section. The idea here is that it needs to be complete, honest, and transparent for so many different reasons. And there are only 5 questions. They're really pretty self-explanatory. The concept here is that you may elect, as you're seeking your master's with us, to move into our Juris Doctor program, our law degree. And this section needs to mirror that section of your JD application, which in the end will actually need to be the same as a bar application. So it's from the very beginning needing to be consistent throughout potential development in your degree programming. So that section is not about what have you done, what is going on, but it's so much more about being kind of fully disclosed on the information, the questions that we're looking to have submitted there. So I'll pause here and see if we have a few questions about resumes, questions about character and fitness section. I consider these to be pretty straightforward, but there are so many different ways to approach it.
I'll just jump in real quick too. It's just the character and fitness is basically a series of questions within the online application form you're going to be filling out. It's basically a yes or no. And anytime that you say yes, that's when you will have to submit a separate statement essay that basically discloses what has happened. And for the most part, in many cases, that does not automatically mean that you would not be admissible to the program. It's just like Genevieve said, which is just important that you fully disclose anything. So we've had people that, all sorts of reasons. I even had somebody that was doing protesting and was arrested for protesting. So it can be a variety of different things. So a pretty straightforward process. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any further questions. So with that, we're going to move on to letters of recommendation. So when talking about that, there are 2 types of letters of recommendation that we accept. There's academic and professional. The academic is if your last academic endeavor was completed within 2 to 3 years, we would take an academic recommendation. Now, this can come from a professor you work closely with. Maybe it was an internship, an advisor, but someone that that knew your work while you were doing that. Now, I can understand that maybe more than 3 years, it might be a little, you might not have the same connections with them, but if you still feel that you can reach out and work with them, maybe you still do talk to them on some level, then, have them be a letter of recommendation for you. When talking about professional, this is when we're looking at Maybe this is a site supervisor, a manager, a fellow coworker, someone that can speak to your work, to what is your ethic? How do you come in? How do you interact? How are you when you're at the job? Now, when talking about these two, I'd like to go a little bit more and talk about tips and suggestions when connecting about these two. So when talking about letters of recommendations, LORs, you really want these to be glowing. You want the recommendators to be able to write something that's going to represent you so well that if they didn't have your resume, that it would really just stand out and say, this is what this person's capable of doing. You want it to be someone that's going to highlight your skills, whether this is the academic and it's talking about how you are in the classroom, how you were with your fellow classmates, or likewise when talking on the professional level, highlighting the skills that you were doing. Depending on we have so many learners that come in from such a wide field, that talking about your skills and what you worked with and what makes you unique is something that the reviewers are really going to enjoy reading when they're looking at this. And along those lines, another thing that I'll always lean on is making sure that you know your recommendator. So please don't pick just any. Let's say you're at your school. Please don't just pick a random professor that maybe you had one interaction with 2 years ago, but you did really well in the class. That person, yes, they might remember you and write, you were a really great student, you did well, but that's not going to be the same as somebody that has had you for a few years and has gotten to know you. So whether this is, again, an advisor, a professor that you work closely with, anything with internships, that's just something that I really want to stress. Another thing that I want to put in as a tip is the reason why I stressed academic and professional is that I need you to steer away from personal recommendations. And what I mean that is I'm talking about, this could be family members that maybe you worked for, that they had a shop and maybe you worked for them. This could be a family friend that has known you since, maybe you were 5 or 6 and they've seen you, grow up in Excel and you've done all this great stuff. And, that's wonderful. We take their word for it, but it means so much more. And it highlights you better though, when you have recommendators from the academic and those professional fields to really talk to you about that. One last tip that I want to go into before fielding some questions is the range of recommendations. So you can have a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4. And one example I want to use with this 4 example is, let's say you've been out of school for about 5 years. Maybe you've been not in a consistent job field. You've been bouncing around and you're a little worried that maybe my recommendators aren't going to be super strong. This is when I would say leverage the 4. With these 4, maybe one of them is a really strong one that's going to highlight your work skill set, or maybe it is someone from the academic field that can highlight how you were in the classroom. And then make sure those other 3, maybe they won't be as strong, but get those other 3 recommendations, because each one, although will stand alone, will be highlighting you and talking about it. So don't feel that just because you might not have the strongest 2 recommenders, that's going to stop you from applying. Use all 4. If one's going to be stronger, again, leverage with that, and then use the other 3, just to highlight your skills and going from there. Later, we're going to talk more about the process of the letter of recommendation when it comes to the application itself. But I'll pause here just to see if there's any questions, and if maybe there's anything I might have missed, Genevieve or Veronica. Please feel free to chime in as well.
Thank you, Nasser. I think that was all really fantastic. my big question is always how do the recommenders submit their letters of recommendation? I know we'll go over that kind of in more detail as we get to the dates and deadlines part of the conversation. But for our attendees, the answer is that you'll submit their information in the form. Once you submit the form in its entirety, that's when they will get their notification to submit their letter of recommendation directly to us. We really do need to receive it from them, as opposed to via our applicants themselves. The other thing I wanted to comment on is the concept that, and it may be going away, but as I was looking for recommendations for various academic pursuits, I'd never really asked my recommenders for a specific letter of recommendation. And I think that it is entirely worthwhile to have a direct conversation with your recommenders, asking them if they would weigh in their letter of recommendation about their take on how you completed this project with them, or you're asking them to discuss a specific skill set that maybe they helped you develop. It is appropriate to give your recommenders kind of some context for what you're hoping your letter of recommendation will be. Now that stops short of writing the letter for them. Do not, this should be from them, this should be their voice. But please know that it is appropriate to kind of have a conversation with your recommender beforehand.
And of course, that also just, and this sometimes happens, definitely reach out to the people that you're going to ask to do the recommendation, because occasionally they're blindsided. So let them know where you're applying, what the program is, give them a little bit of insight into what you're looking to do, because then they're going to be able to speak better to the letter of recommendation. And so that is always helpful. Sometimes they don't know, and then the letter of recommendation comes in and you're like, I wonder where this is going. So that could be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And to go off of what Veronica just said, also keep them in the loop about the deadlines and the dates, just so that they can plan accordingly. Academically, like when I'm an alum of VLS, I have my master's degree in the environmental law and policy program. With working with my professors when I was going from undergrad to here, they really needed a timeline because they were also writing letters for other students at that time. Professionally speaking, though, I do know that supervisors, from my point of view, when I've done stuff in the past for coworkers, having some notice is always really good. But yeah, so I guess with that, we're gonna transition into transcripts. And yeah.
Wonderful. So this is another one that I consider to be pretty straightforward. Hopefully here in a couple of moments, we'll address one of the questions that's just been popped in here. But functionally, what we need are official degree granting and additional academic-based credit transcripts. Those can be sent to us digitally. They can be sent to us physically. Those are the two lists. It seemed like that list was going to be longer, but we do need to receive them in an official capacity from the institution that transcript is for. So transcripts that are sent to us from our candidates are not considered official transcripts. I'll make a very quick note on the additional academic kind of credit bearing transcripts. Many times students may pursue like an associate's degree and then move that associate's degree into a bachelor's degree. They may have started a master's degree at one institution and transferred to a different institution. In any case where original credits were transferred into a larger degree granting transcript, we are most likely going to be able to use the degree granting transcript, so long as the original credits are on that record. This is a really great place to have kind of an in-depth conversation with your admissions counselor to review where transcripts are, where credits are and where they're recorded on transcripts if you have more than one transcript. We do have the capacity to review and consider applications on unofficial transcripts. So those unofficial transcripts would be copies that come from the applicant directly, or come in an unofficial capacity from the institution. Those transcripts, like I said, can be used to review the application, but should an offer of admission be made, we will need the official copies before actually starting the degree. So having said that, it really makes me want to highlight kind of two different approaches that I tend to see. So if an applicant does not have any copies of transcripts at all, I think the best approach is to get the official copy from the institution, kind of from the outset. Typically, you can request a copy for yourself at the same time, but request the official copies from the outset and have them sent to Vermont Law School. The other approach is if you do already have copies of transcripts, certainly have those sent to us, submit those to us in an unofficial capacity, and then go ahead and request the official transcripts from those institutions. That way we will have them on file and would be able to kind of seamlessly move through the decision process into potentially starting with us. So first, before we move on, I'll pause and answer the question about whether there's a place on the application to attach transcripts. That answer is no. What you will do is you will submit your application form, and one of our counselors will be in communication with you, and then you can send those transcripts to us, the unofficial copies to us via our admissions email address. We'll have that up as one of our contact points at the very end. So Annalie will definitely be able to get you that information directly. And so yes, we can accept transcripts from our applicants or candidates, but they are considered unofficial. There are additional steps that our international applicants may need to take. There are quite a few different accredited evaluation agencies like SpanTran, ECE, WES, that will translate and evaluate your transcripts for then our review committee to be better able to review those for your candidacy. So your official transcripts need to go through that evaluation process. There may also be language test score submissions required, depending on where those prior degrees were secured, and depending on each individual situation. So here's another case where it may be really worthwhile to stay kind of in pretty constant contact with our admissions advisors. So I'll pause here and we'll see if we have additional questions. Veronica, I noted that we were both on the same page about having this answered live. Is there more to add? I'm not sure that I can hear you just yet.
Yeah, sorry about that. Story of our life. Muted. Yeah, you covered it all, and I know that we're gonna reference the address, so it's admis@vermontlaw.edu for any kind of electronic secure official transcripts. And then of course, if your school doesn't offer those, then of course we still accept paper transcripts. The only thing that I did want to mention is, so anytime if somebody has a transcript that says official and they send it to us, and I think we talked briefly about this, but it would be considered unofficial, with one exception. If you requested a number of official transcripts and they're still in the original sealed envelope, then that sealed envelope can be sent directly to the admissions office, and that is considered official. So that would be the one exception when it comes to transcripts. We can also review based on unofficial. So, and this is really helpful in a number of instances. Of course, especially if somebody hasn't finished their bachelor's degree, they don't have their final degree granting. So they would be admitted pending receipt of that final transcript. But then also, especially for online students or people that are looking to do online, the timing is so much quicker. So they might, you may find it helpful to go ahead and submit what you have for copies and then request the officials to be sent to us because we have some more time. But that would then allow your application to be reviewed much quicker rather than having to wait. So those are just some additional tips. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So next we're going to move on to the when to did this pop up? The when to apply process. So April 15th, a couple weeks from now is our application deadline. When doing this deadline, that means the form itself is going to be complete. You're going to have your resume or CV is going to be attached to this. Your essay 1, optional essay 1 and 2, depending, will also be included as well. And one thing that I want to talk about with this, we mentioned it earlier, was the letters of recommendation. So in there, you're going to find the field where it's going to have where you can fill in the information for your LOR. When doing this, it's important. One, make sure that you let your letter of recommendation know that you're going to be having them be it. 2, you want to make sure that you include their email address for contact inside the field. And then lastly, if there's ever any issues with uploading any of the information, you're welcome to get a hold of us at the one of your guidance counselors who you're working with. You can contact the admin, and we can also work to add any of those additional documents to it. Once you submit your application, your LORs are going to be notified about adding or submitting their letter of recommendation to your application. They'll be sent a notification via email, and it is sent a couple of times to them as well. It is important that during this time that you are talking to them and letting them know that this is happening. If for some reason they are having any issues uploading it, they are welcome to email it directly to admis@vermontlaw.edu. And yeah, is there any Veronica? I saw that you might have something.
Yeah. Well, now I'm like, oh, so it had to do with the deadline. So I noticed the attendees, we have a mixed group. We have some people that are interested for on-campus as well as some online. Now, the priority seating application deadline is April 15th for those of you that are looking to be on campus, okay? The other thing to keep in mind is some of the specialized scholarship opportunities for on-campus students. That application deadline, I believe, is right around the same time as well. So keep that in mind when you're submitting your application. And then also look to the scholarship webpage to see if there might be a scholarship opportunity that you want to apply for as well. It typically requires a separate essay. So that's something to be mindful of. Now, after that April 15th deadline, we do continue taking applications. But there's, like I said, you would miss out on that specific specialized scholarship opportunities. The other thing to keep in mind for those of you that are interested in online, that's a rolling application process. Typically, the application deadline is 4 weeks from the start of a specific term for online students. So that's an ongoing process. But I just wanted to clarify that since I noticed that we have students or potential students interested in both types of modality.
That's great catch. No, thank you for that. And this is a great transition as well. I wanted to talk about the scholarships. As you know, that there are specialized scholarships for each of the different majors on campus. When applying for those scholarships, please read what, in detail what it's requiring, but essentially they are asking for an essay. And when submitting this essay, we actually ask that you include this with your application when you submit it. Now, if you've already submitted your application and you finish the essay for the scholarship and it's not April 15th yet, get a hold of us. We will attach it for you. Please don't feel that just because you submitted it and you didn't have the scholarship essay ready at the same time that that you shouldn't send it later, and vice versa. Don't let the scholarship essay necessarily hold you back from submitting if you have everything already and you're just working on the essay next. Please consider possibly submitting your full application. So yeah, and then when talking about this next part, we've alluded to it a lot throughout this. It's a very common theme here. Communication and contact. I did see briefly the attendees for a second, and I did notice a few of you guys I have been in email communication with once or twice, or even have had a phone call with. So this is what my face looks like. But yeah, in communication and contact, though, what we're talking about with this is there's a few scenarios here where I just want to address, like, let's say it's April 15th. You don't have everything together, but you really are wanting to start in the fall. Get a hold of us. Let us know. That communication and contact, we'll keep that door open for you in terms of applying. We are here for you along that way. But it's hard to know what's going on with you guys if we don't hear from you. So, if maybe you started your application, and it's April and it's, partway into April, already past the deadline, we can only assume so much with what that means. Maybe it's because you didn't have enough time to get your letters of recommendation together, and that happens. But communicate with us. Don't let that stop you from from trying to get everything together for the fall deadline. We will work with you along the way to really make sure that we can get your application in and out the door. Genevieve, Veronica, and I, when you call the office, there's always someone there that's ready to help you. Please make sure to introduce yourself. That is one tip I'll always give. We have a habit of people that just start talking and then I have no idea who they are, what they're talking, or what program they're in. But yeah, so stay in communication with us. We like chatting with you all, and we'll definitely help you along the way, though, with anything that's going on. Extenuating circumstances happen. Please, though, communicate with us, because we can only assume so much. This next part does involve a little bit of communication as well once I go through and read it. So deposit deadlines. The first deposit deadline is April 15th. And the second deposit deadline is June 15th. Now, probably a few of you are like, okay, well, what if I submit my application on April 15th? What does that mean? How does that work when I miss the first deposit? This is where the communication comes right back into play. Once you'll go through the application process, you'll go into review, then you'll get your, you'll then get your determination of whether or not you're in the program. And then from there, we will work with you on the deposit deadline for the first one. And then moving forward and getting your second one. I know personally myself, I applied in June, I think, and got accepted in July when I started in the program. They worked with me on getting that first deposit in and then making the deadline for a second deposit. So please don't let that hold you up, but also communicate with us about what's going on with the deposit. If that's something that might be holding you back from fully going forward, communicate with us. Let us know. Again, we can only assume so much when we don't hear from you. And yeah, with that, I'll take a breath and I'll see if there's any questions before we move into Melissa's part, talking about applying for financial aid.
So here's one really quick question, especially thinking about communication and contact. How long will it typically be for a residential applicant's completed application to go through the review process? How long should somebody expect to kind of wait before they hear back a decision?
I typically tell my my prospective students once they're in review that typically it takes 3 to 4 weeks to hear back. Right now, to be mindful of, I will say, is that as we get closer to the deadline, there will be more applications coming in. So those of you who are submitting early, that does put you, at the front of the pile when more and more come in towards the deadline. And they're also, just to be considerate, the reviewers also have there are other things at the law school as well that they're going to be reviewing and looking at for different programs. So 3 to 4 weeks is typically what I say. And please don't hesitate or don't be shy about, getting a hold of us if it's been 4 weeks and you want to, and you're curious about what's going on. That's very appropriate to reach out. Yeah. Is there any other questions possibly?
No, just this will be just a clarifying point, and then we definitely want to get to Melissa, our Director of Financial Aid. So much of what Nasser has been talking about just now is specific to our residential master's programming. Now, as Veronica pointed out, we do have a few students who may be interested in online programming. That timing and timeline is substantially different than your standard fall semester start. So rather than dig really deeply into each of the 6 terms and deadlines and timing and everything, I will just comment that for any of our online students, try to keep in mind the 1 month deadline before the term starts, and to stay in communication with their admissions counselor regarding reviews, because reviews on the online programming can be very short time, given the kind of compressed cycle for the online programming. So I think we may pass to Melissa.
Yeah, so we'll hand it off to you, Melissa. Melissa is our Director of Financial Aid. And yeah.
Thanks, guys. So unfortunately, my connection is a little bit laggy, so I am going to leave my video off. It's windy today, and that's all it takes in Vermont for your internet to be a little bit sketchy. So hello again, everybody. I am going to give you a very brief overview of the financial aid process and what you can expect, and then I'll be obviously available to answer any questions that you might have. For those of you who need federal loans to help you cover the cost of your master's degree, you'll need to submit a FAFSA. I realize it's something that nobody enjoys doing, but thankfully it is a bit easier in graduate school than it is for undergrads. All graduate students are considered independent regardless of their individual circumstances. For the purposes of federal aid, you will always be considered an independent, even if you are receiving financial help from your family. Because of that, we don't need any parental financial information on your FAFSA. You can skip that section entirely. You don't even have to look at it. If you've already submitted your FAFSA to us and it has that information on there, you don't need to go in and amend it. It's not something that we look at or that's going to change your eligibility for financial aid. Once you submit it, it can take up to 10 days for us to receive it. And then about a week for us to put together a financial aid package for you and send you the award notification email. So your best bet is when you are applying to the program, that's also the time you're going to want to submit your FAFSA. It's going to make it much easier for you because then once you get your acceptance, we're already going to have your FAFSA on file and we'll be able to award you and get that award notification out to you even sooner. For those who are thinking of summer start, especially online students, you'll have to submit 2 FAFSAs. You have to do 21-22 and 22-23. Luckily, fall starts only need to complete 22-23. But for those of you who need to do both, it's best to do 21-22 first. That way you can carry a lot of that information over to the 22-23 FAFSA, and it's going to save you a little bit of time. For our school code, it's important to remember that we are not the University of Vermont. We get a lot of students who submit their FAFSA to UVM instead of Vermont Law School. We're a separate institution. So our school code is down there at the bottom for when you're submitting that to us. Okay, so once you receive your acceptance into the program and we get your FAFSA, we'll put together that financial aid package for you and send you the award notification email. This is going to allow you to log into the financial aid system. You will not be able to log into the system until after you get that email. So it's best to just wait for that. But once you do log in, you're going to view your financial aid package and you'll see that it's going to be made up of your scholarship and then 2 federal loans, the Stafford unsubsidized loan and the Grad Plus. Big difference between undergraduate and graduate school is that your eligibility for federal loans in graduate school is not need-based. So everybody is going to qualify for their annual maximum in the Stafford unsubsidized loan of $20,500, and then the balance will be made up of the Grad Plus loan. And then your financial aid package for the year is going to be enough to cover your tuition and fees, as well as living expenses if you need those. Now, these 2 loans are identical in their terms. I know some people are a little bit scared of the Grad Plus. There's really no need to be. The terms are identical with the exception of their interest rate and their fees, and the fact that the Grad Plus is credit contingent. So the Grad Plus does have a little bit higher interest rate and fees associated with it, but everything else between the 2 loans is identical. We package all of our students the same initially, but that certainly does not mean that you need to accept all of the aid that you've been offered. After you log into the system and take a look, if you feel like you want to make any adjustments, you want to reduce your loan amount, obviously you want to do that when you're in school. You want to minimize the amount of loan debt you go into. But if you need to make any adjustments, all you need to do is let us know. You can send us an email, give us a call, and we can make any changes that you need. Most students want to be considered for need-based aid. The process for that is very simple. All you need to do is respond to that award notification email and request that we check you for eligibility. Unfortunately, the federal government does not have any grants available for graduate students. Pell Grants are only available for undergrads. So the only funding that we would be able to consider you for is institutional grants, but certainly it doesn't hurt to ask for, additional free money that you don't have to pay back. And now, so let's move on to billing. Our master's students are billed per credit, which can actually make it a little bit difficult to understand your initial financial aid package. So because you're not actually going to be signing up for classes until right before the semester starts, we're going to assume an even split of 10 credits per semester when we initially package you. And then once you actually register for classes, we can make any adjustments that we need to the distribution of the loan that you've already accepted, so that it will actually cover your tuition for each semester. But when you first look at your financial aid package, you will notice an even distribution. And then once you register, we can always make changes so that let's say you register for 12 credits in your first semester, but you've only been packaged for 10, that additional funding would come from your living expenses. So you just basically need to contact us and let us know that we need to make that change in the distribution. And then finally, if you are a VA benefit recipient or AmeriCorps funding recipient, your contact in the financial aid office is going to be Deb Becker. She can answer any questions that you may have. I know that you need a certificate of eligibility, and she can let you know all the steps that you need to take to get your VA funding or your AmeriCorps benefits certified. But other than that, that's pretty much it. So when you're applying, you want to submit your FAFSA. And then obviously, if you have any questions, we're always here. You can send us an email, you can give us a call, and we can talk about it. Anybody have financial aid questions?
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any?
I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
I'm not. Sorry, I'm not seeing any financial aid based questions here, and I think that was really quite comprehensive, Melissa. Thank you.
Yes.
Very much.
Awesome. Well, Melissa, thank you so much again for your time. We're going to go into student resources, and we will do some more questions at the end. So if please feel free to stick around if you'd like, but thank you again for your time.
I'll stick around until the end, see if anybody has any questions for me.
All right, thank you, Melissa. All right, so now we're gonna go into student resources on campus. So there are multiple student resources on campus that are both accessible, I will say, to online and to residential students. I'm going to be brief and just highlight a few of them for the sake of time. And then Veronica and Genevieve, if you have anything you'd like to comment with the online side, please feel free to. So student services, we have the Office of Financial Aid, which you just heard from Melissa and then Deb as well. Barrister's Bookstore is a nonprofit that we have on campus where residential students can use for accessing your books, school supplies. It also has some fun shop items as well. Academic Success is a really great program on campus. As a fellow master's student, I will stress going there day one is very valuable to your education and moving forward. If you've been out of school for a little while, they will help you work and plan out how to get back into the swing of things and how to plan out projects. Personally, I like to use them when formulating final essays or working on any presentations. They were really great about mapping out when to do due dates and drafts and how to get it all put together. The Office of Career Services, another resource I would stress, day one, once you're on campus, to go out or to go visit them or reach out to Monica. If you have any ideas of where you want to go in the field, she's really great at helping you map out those next steps, maybe connecting you with an alumni that happens to be in that same interest. There's also academic centers and programs, and then there's the Office of Alumni Relations. One thing that I realized I missed was our library. It's one of the most wonderful resources that we have on campus for student access. 3 floors that all have wonderful student for quiet study areas, amounts of resources for any research projects that you're taking on as well. Really great resource on campus. And yeah, I guess I will hand this off to Genevieve and Veronica if they have any comments they want to make for online students and accessing any resources.
I will just very briefly echo that these are all phenomenal resources for our residential students to take advantage of in person, on the ground, and are also fully available to our non-residential students as well. So all of our online students still have access to the Office of Financial Aid through Deb and Melissa. Barristers works with our online students, the library, Monica in Career Services, or Abby for our LLM students. So the breadth of services is absolutely available for our online students. It just always requires kind of an additional level of engagement. I would argue, Nasser, that part of what you were expressing was that you're taking advantage of residential students taking advantage of these resources really can impact the final outcomes of the degree, where that takes them professionally. So always, whether you're here in South Royalton or they're in South Royalton or anywhere else across the country and the globe, take advantage of these resources when you're part of our community, certainly.
That was great. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is just pull up our admissions contact page. This just has, oh, Melissa.
Yeah, sorry, real quick. I also just wanted to mention student accounts in the business office is actually separate from financial aid.
Okay.
It wasn't listed in that list. You had student services, and I figured maybe that's kind of what you meant. So Sherry Perkins would be the contact for that if you have questions about billing. If you're not going to take out federal loans and you want to pay out of pocket, anything like that, student accounts at vermontlaw.edu would be your contact for that.
Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
And so, yeah, and along this note, so I just wanted to share with you our contact information for here at the office, as well as for financial aid. And I also wanted to take this time to field any questions that you guys might have. We do have a few minutes left for this webinar. And if there's anything related to previous slides or maybe something that you might be curious about that we haven't touched upon, now's a really great time to do that. So yeah, I'll give you guys just a few moments just to look at this slide and take any contact information you might need. And yeah, please feel free to put any questions into the Q&A.
I do want to hop in with, kind of a heartfelt thank you to our attendees and our panelists. Thanks. I know it's Saturday. It's turning into a beautiful spring day here in Vermont, and I kind of want to get outside and walk. But thank you for joining us. I'll just echo to please take down our contact information. I know some of the questions were very specific to one candidate's experience or another candidate's experience. So the best way for us to really support your candidacy is for us to have kind of those more one-on-one conversations. So whether that's setting up an appointment or starting to communicate via email, that's literally what we are here to do. And luckily, we enjoy, I enjoy doing it. I won't speak for my colleagues, but they seem to enjoy it too. So please contact us. We will be reaching out to you as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A, but please feel free to reach out to any of us at any point. And if you have any questions about anything that you saw or anything that we talked about that you might be that you might want to do a one-on-one about, we are available and happy to help you in any way that we can. On this note, I just wanted to end with a scenery shot of South Royalton. The fall in South Royalton, potentially with any residential students that are will be starting at the end of August. This is some of the beautiful scenery that you'll be seeing around the state. And if you're an outdoor enthusiast, Vermont definitely is a wonderful place for you as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for your time. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you all, and hopefully we see you as part of the Vermont Law School community soon.
Yes.